We can call the meeting to order. Can we reverse the agendas? This morning, Marshall just got back from Japan, and I think maybe it's a good thing from that. You want to make the chamber report first?
Yeah, I can do that. So I'm busy with a lot of our Japanese companies, kind of see what's going on with them. So that went really, really well. It's interesting with automotive what we're seeing. And I think a lot of that's due to the instability in Asia right now. You know, what's going to happen with North Korea. How are some of those companies going to plan, you know, if something goes wrong, or how do they plan ahead of time? So we had some good meetings there that hopefully see some growth coming our way. Also had a really good meeting with the U.S. Ambassador to Japan, Ambassador Haggerty, who used to be my boss with the state. So we got lucky there and got to spend about 45 minutes with him. And a lot of the discussion there was on workforce development, what's going on with opioids in the country, and what are we doing locally to combat some of that. He wanted to know kind of what our local workforce development looked like, and we talked about the work ethic diploma and what we're trying to do locally with some of that. And he seemed pretty impressed, so I sent an email. I think Mayor Chesney was with Chris Edmonds maybe at the governor's conference, because Chris scrambled. I think it was maybe early in the morning when Chris got it, and it was late at night there. But the ambassador wanted to see our work ethic diploma program, and he wants to show that to the president this week while he's in Japan. So I think that was kind of exciting that, you know, get a little national attention for some of the work that our mayors have been doing locally through the partnership. So I think, you know, and as we talk to consultants, I think it's obvious there's nowhere in the country that has overflow of workforce right now. But I think it's those communities that are taking the step to create that pipeline of workers that will be most successful. We saw some statistics. Actually, I talked to Cleveland, Tennessee Friday, and Doug Berry is there. And we see a lot of the same prospects. We have a few similar sites. And Doug said, "I beat you again." I said, "What are you talking about, Doug?" And he said, "Well, you're third in the state and I'm in second." I said, "Well, what?" And he said, "Growth rate." And he said, "The growth rate and number of jobs." And he said, of course, Nashville was first as a metro. They created 24,000 jobs. I mean, it was unbelievable. Cleveland was second and we're third. So he's supposed to be emailing me today. It's a group out of Asheville, an economic group out of Asheville that compiles kind of the U.S. averages. I think we were ranked 80 out of like 380 U.S. metros in growth. So that's exciting. So I think by taking these steps with that work ethic diploma and some of those things and keeping that pipeline of workers coming, that's going to be most important for us. I think right now we've talked to about 9 companies that are looking to expand. And then with prospects, I think this year alone, we've probably had 50% more than last year on the number of projects we've submitted on our sites. So the activity's been up. If we can prove a workforce, I think that'll be our biggest challenge. Also, one other note on site certification. So we've talked about this a little while. We've now submitted, I think, all of the data. Our last 2 things were a Title I survey and 2-foot contour maps. And we're fortunate the city does contour mapping or LiDAR surveys, which most communities don't. And what that does is it helps you probably plan for your streets better. There's other uses for city government and unintended consequences. It saved us thousands of dollars having to pay for this survey to get a 2-foot contour map of our site. So Paul Brown at Public Works helped me track that down, and that saved us quite a bit of time. Usually you have to pay a company to come in and fly that with a plane with these lasers, and it takes weeks, if not months, to compile the data and get it back to you. So luckily the city does that, I guess, every so many years. So we had pretty updated information, good enough to submit. And I'm thinking the state said it would take a few months or a month to review the data to make sure we have everything submitted. And if so, we should be certified. What do you think, Jody? First of the year, roughly? Maybe December, probably first of the year. What that'll allow us to do is apply for more grants toward the site. So if we want to start putting, you know, roads into that site, if we want to start laying some gravel down, preparing for a pad, some things like that will allow us to get the site even more prepared. So That's what I have unless anyone has questions.
Questions, anybody?
Texas Roadhouse opens, is it today or Wednesday? 6th or 8th? 13th?
13th, yeah, I think it got
Never
moved.
mind, we're on a
Next
week
Monday.
off. There's been a lot of cars in the parking lot.
They must have been training this weekend, because they had calls about, I didn't know they opened up.
When I drove by, I
Maybe
smelled
they'll hammer
food, so I know they're in there cooking. So that's good. I think I saw them this morning at 6 o'clock working on Aubrey's. So we still heard that's a first quarter opening, and same with Olive Garden. I noticed they have plumbing and starting to get their pad down. So we've heard first quarter on them as well. So love to see that done before Black Friday, but I don't think that's gonna happen. So.
Well, who's opening next, you think?
I would say Aubrey's would be next, and then Olive Garden would be after them, I think. And then hopefully a few more. I know they've signed letters of intent that we're hopeful come along before summer. So, I think, just an odd note, Texas Roadhouse is gonna hire 200, and they plan to keep 200. A good portion of those will be part-time, but they need 200 employees. Olive Garden will have 60 to 75. I hadn't heard from Aubrey's, so.
Any other questions, anybody? Just as a matter of curiosity, and maybe this can come out in this city's report. If we pass the final reading of the revision of the beer ordinance yet?
Yes, we have.
It's in.
That's been completed. What does that basically, as far as, I suppose what I'm trying to ask, it seems that I was amazed. I was in a little town like Lynchburg, Tennessee. Of course, that's where Jack Daniels is. But right there on the square, they've got a place that's doing a fabulous business. It's making wine. There, can we do that in our town?
This will allow us to make beer and sell craft beers, and do a microbrewery downtown would be the most likely place. Wine would be under the regulation of the state, so I don't know that this has any impact on that. But there is interest in that coming out. There are folks looking downtown at some of the open buildings and looking at a microbrewery or a brew pub type thing with kind of sports bar type food along with the beer. I think that there's opportunity for that to really help build some nightlife downtown.
Okay. City report?
You airport, we've been working on the runway. It has the project to seal the cracks and to resurface the runway has been completed this weekend. It's been restriped, it looks sharp. If you've not been out there, it won't show any better than it does today. It really does look good, but it should be reopened and in business now. We are also finalizing some work on some small sinkholes around the perimeter of the site. That's a part of town that is prone to that, but a lot of investment, a lot of activity in keeping our airport open and functional and working for the community, and it's something we are proud of, and hopefully the rest of the community is as well.
How much did we have to spend on all that?
I forget, we've only got a 5% match on those projects. I forget the total budget, but we can get that. If the paper were interested, it'd be a good picture, and we can certainly get you the story. At ETP City Industrial Park, the road project that's a state grant and a TVA grant, the design is at 90% completion. We'll go through the process of every agency's got to go through plan review and looking at all these things, but we expect, once those reviews are done, or signed off on, that we'll be going out to bid this winter with a construction in early spring, and that road project will open up some additional pads for development. Once Marshall lands the big site we've got here, we'll get another one in the pipeline once we get that done. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is we are in the process now of collecting citizen survey forms. There's about 12 to 1,500 forms have been mailed out. You can, if you're one of the randomly selected, you get it in your mailbox. We do have an online opportunity to complete the survey if you're so inclined. We tried that for the first time last year, and the answers were significantly different, and so we were not able to combine the responses from the two groups. I think the fact that my mother responded 75 times may have skewed the numbers just a little bit, but we do use that survey data to plan and make priorities, and I think it is something that's very useful to the city in terms of getting that feedback from the citizens to let us know how we're doing, where the strong points are, where the weak points are. So that's ongoing, and we should be collecting those for a few more weeks.
I want to piggyback a little on what Tony said about downtown and nightlife. I had occasion to be downtown really early Saturday morning. And a group of us were walking just right up the street with all the lighting on. We were there to help close intersections for a 5K run, but it was an opportunity to see how the downtown looks, just completely vacated with the lights on the sidewalk and the new lighting underneath. And it's really inviting for nighttime activity. And I think the Christmas parade coming up is going to be a great opportunity to showcase that to the public. So I just wanted to toss that in. That things are starting to fall into place for some more of our downtown work. The lighting is impressive.
Okay. Anything else from the city? Questions? Bill?
From the county's perspective, see, we bought a couple of pieces of property adjacent to our Justice Center for the expansion project. We're looking at a couple of options there. We've got 4 grant programs going on at various stages, and the partnership that Marshall talked about, the workforce development partnership, we're looking for a part-time coordinator, about 15 hours a week, to help coordinate the internship, the externship, and the career day projects. And so if anybody knows anyone in that field who's looking for maybe a retiree who's looking for some work, about 15 hours a week.
And what was that job for?
It's for the partnership. They would coordinate the internships and the externships and career day within the school system, work with the school system to coordinate that.
That was the job that KC first had.
Correct, yes.
Casey had. Anything else?
I was going to ask about workforce, that we continue to see unemployment numbers that are very, very, very low, in the 3s. As we continue to get prospects, and we've got those sorts of numbers, do you have a feel from your work about the underemployed group, or the folks that have kind of fallen out of the workforce? Where do we find the workers, I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
So what I usually show, to show a pipeline, is I'll work with Walter State, the TCAT, the high schools, to show students enrolled in technical programs. Now, I'm not gonna take an English degree student from Walter State, but if they're enrolled in welding, and, TCAT, I'll take plumbing, pipe fitting, electronics, maintenance. I'll show that as kind of the education pipeline. Unemployment, we know the number's low. We'll show 1,400, 1,300 unemployed people, which is interesting. You'll still hear certain people say in the community, well, I know so-and-so can't find a job. And I'm thinking, they must not be able to see real well and go down the street because everybody's hiring. It's hard not to work. If you want to work, it's hard not to work. If you can pass a drug test and you show up. So to me, that's not an excuse anymore. The unemployed number's kind of a tough pool to draw from. The underemployed, I've talked to a few consultants, they'll usually use 12 to 14% of employed persons. When I show my pipeline numbers, I go to 10% just to be conservative a little bit. But we'll show right now a pipeline within the 8-county region of about 17,000 workers. Now, how many of those are really workers and not, I don't know, but that's the pipeline I show to prospects. Now, when they start narrowing it down that we're an automotive facility, we'll cut 1,000 off the accounting side or here or there, and we'll let them refine that. But generally, I can show a pipeline of about 17,000 within an 8-county region. That's our drive time. They're 45 minutes.
Also in the reconnect, there's what's called the reconnect community, which is a program the state funded with some local funds through the partnership. It's a promotional waiting for reconnect, and what they're finding is that most of the folks who enroll through reconnect are working, and they're wanting to upgrade their skills.
Yeah.
That's what they're finding.
I was just wondering, at what point we reach the point where, in order to fill the jobs, we're gonna have to build some housing and get people moving in to actually grow the population.
I think we're there on the need for housing. I was at Precision Buller Friday delivering some awards, and the gentleman that's the plant manager there now was driving from Johnson City. He was a plant manager somewhere up there, and he said, I just moved here, and I won't say which apartment, but he said they're supposedly the nicest apartments in town, and he said they're trash. And he said, I've looked for a month now for a house, and he said, I can't find a house. And I said, well, how much do you want to spend? And he said, well, 180 to 220, around that range. And he said, I don't want a huge house on the lake. I just want a normal house in a small neighborhood. I can mow my own yard. And he said, I'm struggling. So there's definitely a gap, and we keep hearing about the gap. So what he said is he went to the first thing he did was he saw the apartments behind Cracker Barrel. He said, oh, those look great. And he said he went, and they said, well, do you make more than $16,000 a year? And he said, yeah. I said, you're not eligible. And he said, there's so many nice complexes that are subsidized that, you know, a working person can't get into them. You need to be unemployed to get housing, quality housing. So.
You have any input?
It's just tough. It's thin.
Well, you hear stories, just anecdotal, but houses in the range you're talking about, that 180, 200, 220, turning over in days, I mean, not even weeks, and, you know, so there's clearly more demand than there is a supply.
Yeah, Jerry Young couldn't find, he's living in Dandridge.
Patriot Hills, isn't it? Very well placed. And he had the same experience. He had two that they liked here that got sold by the end of that day.
So I guess we're to the point now where we need to consider growing our population to meet some of our needs.
Yeah, I think we have to.
I suspect the problem, the only way to solve that problem is that the reason that the realtors or the developers not building projects like that is financing.
That's right.
Is they can't get financing because of change in the federal laws nowadays. The banks are not wanting to take the risk, or can't take the risk, you know, put it that way. And I don't know how we're gonna solve that problem. I think there's realtors that would take the risk if the money was available, but I don't know if
Bank, it would seem that the bank's just gonna have to be, somebody gonna have to get the olive out of the jar, and one bank's gonna say, okay, we're going after the business and determine the needs there.
Yeah.
And like most banks, banks are always following trends. Somebody has to set the trend. Banks are still buying up other ones and reducing the sizes of them. nobody wants to be in a bank the size Home Trust is in. And somebody say, well, there's a need, there's a market, we can make money, lending money, and beat the others to it, then forces of competition will kick in. But we have to find land for these developers to build the houses inside the city limits.
Yeah, we don't want those county folks, man.
We need to annex some county property, that's what we need to do. Bill help us with it.
Now, we're still, on the statistics, we're still one of the communities that are growing. So you look at Hancock and Hawkins and Cock, they're losing population. Every UT just put out a new study, Dr. Matt Murray, and they're showing population projections through 2060. And it's showing us, you know, a steady increase through then. And if you look at just the recent numbers, the surrounding communities are losing population to communities like ours. And I think if we can solve that housing issue, we would see a greater uptick. Because forever, everybody's drove here from 45 miles away to work, and I think the idea is now, why don't we just live there? You've got some of the lowest taxes, the best parks, you have all the amenities. Why are we still living 45 minutes away? If you look at some of our surrounding counties, their city taxes just went up $1 on the tax rate. County taxes went up 40 cents. That's a county that touches us. How can people afford to live there and still drive here? So I think that's why we'll continue to see that growth, because we've been more responsible with our tax money.
Let me speak further. Bill asked me, we see a lot of, even though the rate's down, we're getting to the point where some of those are unemployable, don't qualify. And that's a skewed number that's turned in statistically with the state anyway. If you say I don't have a job, if I lose my job today, I go to unemployment, now I'm counted. But there's a lot of other people running around that's not in that count. So, in addition to that, what you just said about construction, there's so much construction going around in the Knoxville area, Nashville area. We have a lot of guys who would qualify in our industry, but they're driving to Knoxville, construction jobs, they're 70–80% more hourly pay. And it's really competitive. We used to have droves of people coming into this city because there was those construction jobs and housing jobs, but now they're in these other cities right now. So it's what Tony's asking about. Yeah, that kind of build keeps some of those people here and keeps them in other jobs as well. But we've got a real undertow of people that leave this county every day to go work in Knoxville.
We've got 62 open building permits right now for residential. So
That's good.
there's activity going on.
That's good to hear.
Any other thoughts?
Randy, you got any thoughts on the workforce side?
I know it's specific to our industry, we just need better training, and that needs to continue on, because we can find people to work, we can't find people with a lot of work ethic. And so they have the capabilities, and often they have the skill set, but the work is not simple, and if it's not simple, sometimes they don't stay.
They
So-
don't want to do it.
They don't want to do it. So especially on the retail side of the business, that part is challenging to get the people that are willing to work the hours that it takes to do that job. So that's where I think the workforce development and the deployment is helpful, and the work ethic deployment is helpful in getting to those right people. And I'm hoping that we can work with the school system to find some more and bring them on young, because there are still great employees out there that are very young. They're just fewer and farther between.
Anything else? Okay, not sure, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Move. Okay.